You were a mess. A sniffling, wheezing mess. Not that Kirishima didn't think you were drop-dead gorgeous, snot and all. But really, you looked sick. Very sick. As it stood, you could barely keep your head upright. You'd nearly fallen asleep twice during President Mike's English lecture, and the only reason you'd avoided a scolding was because Kirishima had made sure to sit up very straight, his broad shoulders shielding you from your teacher's line of sight. Afterward, during lunch, he'd made a point of suggesting you swallow your pride and visit the clinic, seeing as you were obviously struggling with, well, everything. But you'd refused to cave. Giving up just wasn't your thing.
Heroes don't get sick days, Kiri.
You'd grumbled through another fit of coughs.
If they did, then society as we know it would crumble.
And you were right, even if he wished that you weren't. So he'd settled for mumbling a reluctant, don't push yourself too hard, and dropping the issue. It wasn't until afternoon training when everything went sour. Kirishima had been paired up with Aoyama. Aizawa had said something about testing the limits of his hardening against the blonde's surprisingly destructive naval laser. Meanwhile, Eijirou was assigned to be your sparring partner. It had been obvious that you still weren't feeling your best, but at least you hadn't had the misfortune of being partnered with Bakugo. Your quick-tempered classmate wouldn't have had any qualms with beating the living crap out of you, even in your weakened state. No, Eijirou was better. He was capable of showing restraint, especially when he knew that he had a very intense Kirishima glaring into the back of his skull. Everything seemed fine at first. Recognizing that you'd never be able to take your classmate hand to hand, you'd opted to exercise caution, wear him down from a distance. And for a while, your tremors had done just that. They'd kept Eijirou hopping across the battlefield, never able to find a stable patch of ground, never able to catch his breath. But then, he'd been able to steady himself, just for a second. But it had been enough time for him to ricochet forward. In order to avoid being trapped by his tail, you'd leapt, rolling along the pavement in a clumsy maneuver. It wasn't a catastrophic move. You could still recover, Kirishima had reasoned. Only you never got up. You just laid there on the pavement. Not coughing, not panting, eerily still. And Kirishima bolted, shoving his way past his classmates, ignoring the debris and the confused chatter as he made his way over to you. The sight of your chest, rising and falling steadily, had been enough to draw a relieved exhale from him. Still, he'd refused to leave your side, even when Recovery Girl arrived and confirmed that yes, you were, in fact, just unconscious. Only the threat of Aizawa's capture weapon had been enough to make him step back long enough for two robots to load you onto a stretcher. Seeing them haul your crumpled body off had nearly killed him. He should have stopped you earlier.
Damn it!
Why hadn't he made you go back to the dorms before this happened?
Because I'm fine. Really, Eijirou, I am.
You answered his question later when he visited you in the clinic. Once training was over and once all of his complaining has earned him a hall pass from one thoroughly irritated Aizawa.
Listen, I understand wanting to be strong,
Kirishima offered, fighting to keep his voice level.
But you passed out, babe. Do you have any idea how scared I was?
You chewed on your lip, sniffling a bit. Before you even finished sitting up in the bed, Kirishima was handing you a tissue, sporting this pathetic frown you wish you hadn't seen.
If it had been a real fight, I don't even wanna.
He stopped midway through the sentence, shaking his head.
No, I can't even think about what would have happened.
I'm sorry, you mumbled, defeated. You're right. You're totally right. I should have stopped earlier. I mean, I've been dizzy all day. I should have known better. You breathed heavily, dropping your tissue into the waste bin beside you. Oh, it's just... I don't know. I didn't want to give everyone a reason to think I'm weak. Didn't want them to think that I couldn't handle a little cold.
Nobody thinks you're weak.
Well, now they do. I ate it out there. And now everyone in the class is gonna think I'm some wimp that faints when they get worked up.
No! Hell no!
Kirishima assured, rolling his chair in closer.
Everyone knows you felt like absolute crap today. They saw you hold your own against Eijirou, even looking as terrible as you did.
You scoffed, pretending to be offended by his little terrible comment. He snorted, smiling wide.
No offense. You're always beautiful to me, babe.
Kirishima's expression softened.
But seriously, after watching you fight through it, they probably think you're even more of a badass.
You sighed, shaking your head. You're wrong. 2 words from you were enough to make every muscle in his body go rigid. I wasn't just holding my own in my match. I was about to win. Kirishima relaxed, his grin returning.
Well, I guess we'll never know for sure.
He patted your shoulder with his free hand and tried to ease you back down into the bed. No, you insisted, resisting the push of his hand. If Eijirou had taken one more step to his left, the pavement would have crumbled beneath his feet. Seeing Kirishima's confused expression, you gestured towards the floor, grinning as if you were mad and looking much more animated than you had all day. Sewer! I obliterated the cement all the way down to the sewer beneath the training grounds. Your enthusiasm caught up with you, and you were momentarily overwhelmed by another bout of hacking. If I'd been conscious, then Monkey Man would have been going for a swim and I would have won! Kirishima stared at you, completely at a loss for words. The silence didn't last, though. Less than a second later, he doubled over in laughter, using his wrist to brush tears away from his face. He still looked thoroughly amused when he straightened out, delighted eyes meeting your own. Reaching out, he ruffled your hair. He would have kissed you if he'd been sure it wouldn't have posed a risk of spreading whatever you had to the rest of UA.